Hey folks, Will Brink here at Brinkstone.com, and a topic I want to cover today is the importance of, or maybe the lack thereof, importance of form during exercises. A question I got from somebody was, how important is good form during weightlifting exercises? And this seems like a pretty obvious question, and the answer is actually fairly counterintuitive. You can go on YouTube and look at multi-time Mr. Olympias doing a range of motion with in various exercises of about this much, leg presses and a number of exercises in pretty horrible form, and yet they look like they look. Well, why is that? Well, the basic answer is that if one puts enough actual mechanical stress on the muscle, it will respond, and one can put mechanical stress, adequate mechanical stress, surprisingly through pretty bad form and fairly short ranges of motion. Now, the issue is, well, then the question, of course, well, is that the way people should train? And the answer, of course not. The answer is no, you should not train like that. But is good form a primary variable in the success of, let's say, people that are specifically looking to build muscle? We're not talking about functional athletes here. We're not talking about people who are more interested in the functionality of the strength and the build that they have than the sheer visual, trying to build muscle. And the counterintuitive answer is no, it's not probably a major variable. And again, if you have the genetics for it, and obviously you may have some PEDs added to that and so on, again, you can go into any gym and see some of the biggest guys using some of the worst form you'll ever see. And this is, again, I think what causes some confusion to people, because people inherently, and understandably so, sort of think, well, using good form in an exercise, obviously proper range of motion, whether a time under tension, so on and so on, should be an obvious benefit to those people strictly looking to gain muscle. And the answer apparently is not, per se. Now remember, again, this is not the way you want to train. There are benefits to training, obviously, with using the correct form in an exercise and the correct range of motion and such. And one of those is a reduction in the risk of injury, and a number of benefits. Your joints, over a long period of time, will suffer from poor form. Obviously, if talking about highly technical lifts, you're really asking for trouble using poor form and so forth. So this is not any way I'd recommend people train. But again, as I said, it is not uncommon at all to see some, as people like say, some really jacked people using some really horrendously bad form. And the answer to the reason for that is that if you are causing adequate mechanical stress, the form is just not that important. So again, it's not giving you two different messages. I'm not recommending you train like this. Now, an interesting side note to this, or kind of going the other way, is I think most good coaches you will find, and again, this depends on the athlete. We're talking about strictly people trying to gain muscle mass, not Olympic lifters, not MMA, not sprinters, whatever. But you will find that a lot of good coaches, they're not looking for perfect form. They're looking for good form. People that try to strive for perfect form in everything they do sometimes cannot actually get adequate mechanical stress, because they are so focused on perfect form in everything they do that they're not actually able to get a loading pattern high enough or to the muscle to actually cause adequate mechanical stress. And so there is actually, as always, the correct answer lies somewhere in the middle. You want good form. You don't necessarily have to have great, perfect form on everything you do all the time. Again, as lifts get heavier, and again, this gets a little more technical to go into which lifts and where. Some lifts, obviously, you are increasing the risk of injury, going outside what would be pretty close to perfect form. Some of them is not going to do you a lot of harm. Again, you can see pro bodybuilders like Arnold and back in the day, and new bodybuilders, big guys swinging up weights and their curls and stuff all the time. You go into Gold's Gym in Venice or any major place, and you will see this. So there is a time and a place for perfect form, good form, and even if you know what you're doing, what would be less than perfect form. But however, even less than perfect form, when your form starts to drift away from what would be considered good, has its place depending on the lift, depending on how long you've been at it, and so on and so on. I think it was Coach Staley, Charles Staley, had a nice sort of rule of thumb, which was when the exercise you're doing gets past what is correct form at maybe about 10% off of what it should be, that should conclude the set. I mean, what is 10%? Well, that's you know, obviously a little bit vague. That takes a good coach and someone who knows what they're doing to make that assessment. But you know, you got to set the bar somewhere. So amazingly, as counterintuitive as it sounds, people that are strictly focused on gaining muscle, great form is not particularly important as long as the mechanical stress is there. However, again, it's not recommended. You are increasing your potential for injury. You are increasing your potential for a number of problems. So, but this at least explains to you, I hope, when you see online, you see on YouTube, you go into a gym, you see some humongous guy or girl, whatever, doing an exercise with horrendously bad form, and they're still the biggest person in the gym. This at least hopefully will not dissuade you from using good form in your lifts, because again, those people usually have genetics that, you know, less than 1% of the population have anyway, and it's not doing them any favors long term. Anyway, I hope this information helps, and you might want to sign up to my page, because you see I give away a lot of unusual info, a lot of science-based info, a lot of objective stuff that you probably don't see on other pages, and I'll see you all on the Brink Zone.